Well, look what's back again, the month of March, right on schedule because that's just how calendars work. And look what it brought along for the ride, a bunch of new video games. Who could have anticipated this? Well, we did, and here are March 2025's biggest game releases. Before we get into it, just the usual caveat that we try to make these videos as comprehensive and informative and accurate as possible, but release dates do change and we have been known to make mistakes. Case in point, last month I got all riled up about PGA Tour 2K25's Legend Edition having the ludicrous price of $199.99, but that was a typo that nobody caught.
The price is wrong.
It's in fact priced at $119.99, so still expensive, but less outlandishly so. So apologies for screwing that up, and for anything else I've ever screwed up or ever will screw up in the future.
Obviously, you're not a golfer.
On a related note, we also do our best to make these videos entertaining, and it's a delicate balancing act sometimes. You make something too serious and you bore people, and you make it too silly and it annoys them, and we heard you loud and clear about last month's episode going a little too hard with the goofs and gags, so we'll try to pump the brakes on that this month.
Shh, even before you start. That was a preemptive shh.
Anyway, let's get on with the video games because that's probably what you're here for. For decades, people have been asking where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, and that answer invariably differs. Back in January, the infamous globe-trotting thief crept onto iOS and Android by way of Netflix games, and on March 4th, you'll be able to catch her on consoles as well. Speaking of March 4th, if you'd rather March 4th in a more regimented ambulatory sense, Age of Mythology Retold comes to PS5 that date as well, following its PC and Xbox Series release last September, and that date also sees its Immortal Pillars expansion dropping on all those platforms I just mentioned. If you'd like to immortalize some stuff in a building with pillars out front, you can do exactly that in 2 Point Museum, the latest cartoony management sim from the folks behind 2 Point Hospital and 2 Point Campus, except this time, you probably guessed, you'll be curating a museum of very silly exhibits. That's on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Still that day is Everhood 2, the follow-up to the 2021 ARPG that paired bizarre visuals with a novel musical approach to combat. That's on Switch and PC. If you prefer more conventional RPG, on March 6th you can play Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars, which may sound like a straightforward remaster of the beloved PS1 classics with some fancy buzzwords slapped on for fun, but it is in fact a remaster of the PSP port of said PS1 classics, and you can now play it on all of the modern platforms to your heart's content. March 6th is a big day for new games too. Split Fiction is the latest from Hazelight Studios, the team that gave us A Way Out and It Takes Two, and once again this is played exclusively co-op and it follows a pair of writers, one sci-fi, one fantasy, who are sucked into a simulation and forced to work together to escape. I guess you could say It Takes Two to find A Way Out. That's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Also coming to those platforms is FragPunk, which will have a team of 5 working cooperatively to shoot the members of a different team also comprised of 5 players also trying to shoot them in return. That was a really clumsy way of saying this is a 5v5 shooter. But wait, hold on, before your eyes glaze over because we have so many of those, here's the hook for this one. It's got a roguelike twist and players draw cards that add modifiers that change the dynamic, stuff like flipping the level upside down or changing the weather to make it harder to run without slipping and falling on your ass, or activating big head mode so you can shoot the enemy teams in the heads more easily, or making little head mode so they can't shoot you as well. If you'd prefer a game that involves bizarre cranial maladies of this sort but is a little less of an assault on the senses, Do No Harm is a medical simulation with a Lovecraftian twist, so you'll be treating patients for ordinary old-timey ailments and also helping them cope with the lasting effects of encounters with unthinkable cosmic horrors. That's on PC. If you think dragons suck and you want to beat the crap out of them, you can go do that in Dragonkin the Banished, a good old-fashioned action RPG set in a fantasy realm that is all messed up for dragon-related reasons. That hits early access on PC March 6th with new-gen console versions to follow at a later date. On March 7th, if you're suffering from a bad case of WrestleMania and you've got enough money in the bank, you could beat the clock and play WWE 2K25 a whole week early by snagging the Bloodline or Deadman editions. Otherwise, the standard edition is out March 14th. That's on everything but Switch. If you'd like to play a video game that has considerably less sweaty people jumping on each other, March 7th also sees the release of Sugardew Island, your cozy farm shop. This looks like Stardew Valley by way of Animal Crossing, and you'll toil away in the fields growing cartoon fruits and vegetables to sell to the magical forest folk, befriending some whimsical characters along the way. And also, it has romance options, so hey, maybe it does involve sweaty people jumping on each other. Anyway, that's on Switch, both PlayStations, Xbox Series, and PC. On March 10th, Rise of the Ronin hits PC following a year of console exclusivity on PS5. I feel like this one came and went without much commotion, but it's a totally decent open-world samurai game, so if you can't wait 10 whole days for Assassin's Creed Shadows, or however many months for Ghost of Yotei, that's an option now too. If drinking a hot cup of matcha is more appealing to you than wielding a katana, how about a nice relaxing game about a former arena fighter retiring to manage a tea shop? Well, that's what Wanderstop looks like, but there's more going on here. It's from some of the creators of the Stanley Parable and Gone Home, and in addition to being a cozy game about making tea, it's also a commentary on burnout, like the psychological kind, not the racing game. Check out the trailer for Wanderstop, it looks like it might go places. That's on PS5 and PC on the 11th. On March 13th, Dungeons of Hinterburg meanders its way onto PS4 and PS5 following its Xbox and PC launch last summer. This is also kind of a commentary on burnout, but rather than quitting an exciting violent job to do business stuff, it's about quitting a business job to go do exciting violent stuff, namely climbing around in the Alps slaying monsters instead of climbing the corporate ladder. On March 14th, you can play MLB The Show 25 by grabbing the digital deluxe edition for $99.99 US, and yes, I double checked that price. You can also save $30 by waiting 4 more days for the standard edition, which is officially out on PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch on the 18th. On March 20th, Assassin's Creed Shadows is supposedly coming out, and this one's been delayed enough times that it's feeling a little bit like Groundhog's Day to tell you about it in a video like this, but in case you haven't been paying attention, this one takes place in feudal Japan and features dual protagonists, Yasuke, who is a samurai, and Naoe, who is a ninja, and as is customary in the Assassin's Creed games, they will climb stuff and stab people, and then jump off of the stuff that they climbed, and then land in conveniently placed hay bales. That's on PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and select Apple devices.
It's fabricated with materials that shouldn't exist. And yet, this is clearly a very ancient artifact.
Also on March 20th, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition makes its way to Switch. This was originally released on the Wii U in 2015, and considering the Switch sold 11 times as many units as its predecessor, a whole lot of Xenoblade fans are going to be playing this one for the first time ever, and also I imagine that some fans who played it way back when have forgotten enough in the decade since it came out that it's probably worth a replay. The first few months of the year are usually big for JRPGs, and we regularly get annual installments of long-running series with even longer-running titles. For example, Atelier Yumia, the Alchemist of Memories, and the Envisioned Land, which is coming to everything on March 21st. This is the follow-up to last year's Atelier Reslariana, Forgotten Alchemy, and the Liberator of Polar Night, which only came to mobile and PC, but the year before that, there was Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End, and the Secret Key. Not counting ports, remakes, or side stories, new verbosely entitled installments in the Atelier series have been released basically every year since it debuted way back in 1997. This is pretty impressive considering how impenetrable it probably seems to newcomers. I mean, Atelier, the name of the series, is an esoteric word for workshop that I'm not sure how to pronounce, and I had to look up to figure out what it means. So part of me is like, maybe they should workshop that title, but at the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Clearly they're doing something right, because this series has been going for almost 3 decades with steady installments. Outside of sports games, I can't think of too many franchises that have managed to steadily churn out new games for this long without completely derailing, rebooting, becoming massively popular, or some combination thereof. So if we have any Atelier fans watching, I'm really curious, where do you start? How do you get into it? What's the big deal? Am I pronouncing it right?
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Anyway, if you'd like a video game series that's a little more self-explanatory about where it takes place and what you're doing there, Killing Floor 3 hits new gen and PC on the 25th, and it'll have you and maybe some pals teaming up to make a real mess, shooting and stabbing a bunch of god-awful bioengineered abominations. You know, the real Killing Floor is one that has a bunch of slippery areas and trip hazards, so watch your step out there. Somebody put up a wet floor sign for Pete's sake. On March 26th, you can burn rubber and leave skid marks all over the place in JDM Japanese Drift Master, an open-world racer with hyper-realistic gameplay, but a story that unfolds through animated cutscenes that are clearly taking some cues from Initial D. You can install that on your D drive on your PC. On the 27th, Atomfall hits everything but Switch, which has some obvious Fallout DNA, but probably cribs a bit from Stalker as well, as it incorporates some survival elements and is based loosely on a real nuclear disaster rather than a fictional nuclear war. Atomfall takes place in an alternate timeline where the 1957 wind-scale fire went a whole lot worse, leaving the United Kingdom thoroughly irradiated and also populated with some creepy Wicker Man cultists and Bioshock-looking robots, which you will help deal with. Thank goodness you're here. If you'd rather deal with some high-value elusive targets or just make people slip on banana peels in immersive VR, Hitman World of Assassination comes to PlayStation VR 2 that day as well, and you can play or replay the entirety of IO Interactive's utterly brilliant and also completely slapstick assassination sim completely from Agent 47's perspective. This was released for PSVR 1 already, and it's made its way to other VR headsets since then with a not-so-great reception, but hopefully some extra time allowed this version to be fine-tuned. And hey, even if it's one of the worst ways to play a great game, it's still something new for PSVR 2 owners, and also, you can make people slip on banana peels, which will never not be funny.
Look. Look!
Still that day is Bubble Ghost Remake. Bubble Ghost was first released in 1987 for a variety of personal computers before having the noteworthy honor of being the first French game published for the original Game Boy, or the Jeu de Garçon as they don't actually call it there. Bubble Ghost is about a ghost who has a bubble, and Bubble Ghost Remake is a remake of that game, which is coming to Nintendo Switch. I hope that clears things up. And finally, on the 27th, the First Berserker Khazan is a single-player action RPG Souls-like set in the universe of the massively popular Dungeon and Fighter series. And man, it is so nice to see a live service multiplayer game reinvented as a cool-looking single-player game rather than the other way around. And now I want to see Maple's story turned into a horrifying Souls-like. The First Berserker is coming to Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. And finally, on March 28th, inZOI comes to PC, the ridiculously gorgeous life simulation game, which sort of looks like if somebody remade The Sims in GTA 5 and then installed a bunch of those ultra-realistic graphics mods that make your PC catch fire, but even that isn't doing it justice. Considering what people did with the character creator demo for inZOI that was released, I cannot wait to see what kind of weird stuff shows up online once that game is out in the wild. That is coming to new-gen consoles later on, but there's no release window quite yet. Okay, those are March 2025's biggest games. If you have trouble keeping track of all of these games, I would highly recommend checking out IGN Playlist. It's kind of like Goodreads or Letterboxd, but it's for games. We've got a massive database of basically every game ever released, announced, or even just rumored, so if you want to keep a list of everything you already played, are currently playing, or want to play someday in the future, you can do that there, among other things. Check it out by going to this website or clicking this QR code, or just Google it. Real quick before we go, I wanted to plug another video I was in last month that involved me flying to the UK, going to an actual castle, interviewing medieval experts about how historically authentic Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is, and then getting hit on the head with stuff while wearing a full suit of armor. It is one of my favorite videos I've ever been in, so please go watch that if you haven't already. Before we go, a big huge thank you to Amanda Medina, Chris Del Padre, and Logan Plant for helping this video come together each and every month. A lot of work goes into it, even when we screw up sometimes, so thank you to everybody who tunes in every month and watches. Sound off in the comments below with what you're playing this month, or anything we might have forgotten, or just to say hi, whatever. I'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching. Still that day is Bubble Ghost Bubble Ghost. Why is it Bubble Ghost? Still that day is Bubble Ghost Remake. Bubble Ghost is about a ghost who has a bubble. Bubble Ghost, in case you couldn't figure it out, is about a ghost who has a bubble. Still that day is Bubble Ghost Remake. Bubble Ghost was first released in 1987. I don't know why it's so funny.